some of them have to. You think someone in there has
Oh, yeah, but they're not recovered.
A way to cope or...
Yes. Yeah, and they believe in that disease model because that's what they teach. Right? It's a huge moneymaker to teach the disease model. It's very profitable because it's selling. You're selling medication. They profit off of those meds. I mean, the whole concept of the disease model was to be able to say we can find a medication then to fix the brain. You know, obviously, though, you know, I really, really don't want to demonize recovery programs because I think there's a lot of good that comes out of it. And there are a lot of people who learn coping mechanisms. And so they still have the issues, they still have the underlying feelings, but they're coping with it in a more or a less destructive way, which we could say there's benefit to that. So why poo-poo it all when there's some people wouldn't respond to what I'm saying. It's too much. They can't handle it. And they would feel that way. I can't handle that. So isn't it better to have something at least to temporarily keep you from killing yourself?
Yeah.
You know, there are people that would say I am a food addict and they thrive on that whole model, even though there's no conversation about your issues with body image, all those coping mechanisms, you know, basically this whole survival mode you're in. Like, they're not looking at it from that bigger perspective. And for them to do that, they'd have to let go of how they've identified as an eating disorder. So some of these people identify themselves by their eating disorder, similar to someone that says, I'm an alcoholic, and they, to some degree, identify a personality from that. Like, that's who I am. It's like a weird way to create separation from others, to say, well, I'm different because I'm an addict. That's survival mode. And that's not, there's a downside to it. There's an upside to the fact that you're willing to get help. The downside is it enables you to continue to blame things for why you suffer the way you do. You never really look at yourself.
Or just that it's always, you know, unspoken or unspoken that you have a problem because you need to get thin. You need to be
they don't talk about that.
And you need to look, you know, like that's never ever questioned. If you take that out of the equation, what do you have? Like, that is your goal and you want to get there, so you're having a hard time with it.
Yeah, they just don't question that right? And that's why I talk about dogma so much, because it's a perfect example of a dogma. I know I talk about it a lot, and I have over the course of the last 2 years about how dogma plays into this and why people suffer so much is because they have these beliefs that they think are sacred and true and righteous, so they don't look at them. And that could be to their detriment. Right? Like, thinner people are happier.
Yeah.
That's
what I need to be. I'm supposed to be that. That's what I have to be. Like,
that's dogma. There's no choice.
Done. Like, no question.
Correct. And how no one questions that position as problematic. How can that be a problem? Wouldn't I be happier? You're basically saying you're taking away my happiness to question that.
Yeah.
You're taking away my survival. That's the one thing that gives me hope, Robin. You know? Never questioning that attaching hope to something so ridiculous is the problem for why you're over-consuming food, right? And so there's a ton of blind spots when you don't look at your dogma. Remember what I was just saying about that client? You were like, I'm so inspired. I love her. She is opening herself up to blind spots, and that's hard to do. It feels vulnerable. The willingness to admit the truth when it hurts. Those are blind spots. We don't want to look at those. We don't want to admit that. If I look at it and admit it, that means I'm going to let it go. So I might as well just stay in denial. Oh, I so remember that. So clear in my own suffering. Why even tell people what you're doing? Whatever they think or say, I'm not stopping what I'm going to do. I'd rather just lie to them about it. And I believe my lie. I believe it, because you convince yourself what you're doing is the right thing to do. Anyways, it's amazing survival stuff. So yeah, when people go to these outpatient or inpatient clinics, They're not necessarily, I mean, honest to God, they treat it as if it is you will never recover, ever. And so, because they have the disease model, and how much recovery do people actually experience? I mean, when we talk about recovery, we're not talking about I'm coping recovery. We're talking about you don't cope anymore recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Your thoughts have shifted. Your whole entire way of looking at the world is like completely shifted. Like you're not the same person. It doesn't make sense to call yourself an addict, you know? So they don't come across that very often. And I have to say, I don't think that's, I think it would be unrealistic to expect these clinics to have more people like me. That I feel like my recovery was a flippin' miracle. It was a miracle. Every time I work with someone who like does it, I still think it's miraculous for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I experience it with people all the time, but I understand what I'm working against, and it's a miracle that they let it go.
Yeah.
It's not easy. In fact, it goes completely against our hard wiring to do what I suggest.
Yeah, it does.
I know.
What the hell?
And so when someone is willing to do it, I am in awe of it. Just so to sit here and go, well, they suck. Well, of course they do in relation to this, because it's a fucking miracle that these people actually are doing what I'm saying.
Yeah, I tried OA, and I love the 12 steps.
I do too. I love the 12 steps.
It was just too, like, it was depressing to just think that I had to do this the rest of my life.
Forever,
and then,
yeah.
You know, you would get your chip for however many days you didn't overeat, but then the minute you overate, you, like, were back to day one. You failed, and you were back to day one. It was, I don't know, it was just too...
depressing?
That just wasn't,
It feels hopeless.
I didn't like that. And how did you have a disease? Like, I didn't like that label.
I don't like it. Well, and that's the disease model. That's not the 12 steps, even though they've kind of intermingled those. The thing is, I do believe, even if I go back to my own experience of being diseased, it feels like your brain has been hijacked. I felt that way. Like, I don't know how to stop. I can't stop. I don't know if you know that feeling. If you've gone to OA, you know the feeling, but you're not. It's because you're so close to it, you can't see straight. So you don't know why. It's like, I don't know why I'm being drugged down this river. Oh, well, it's because it's it's like a level 5 river. Not going to be able to stand up in it. You don't know why, right? Until you have perspective to go, oh, well, it's because it's too deep. You know what I'm saying? You have to get out of it to have that. And it's very difficult to get out of it when you're in it, because the risks are so high. It's super high risk. You're in a life and death kind of primal relationship with food and thinness, right? And all these and then all your environmental triggers that are just, you don't know why. You don't understand it. And so when someone says, oh, you're addicted to food, you're like, okay, that must be it.
Yeah.
So you try to control your food, but you don't understand, that's only it only goes so far. In fact, you start noticing that those restrictions become your diet. And then eventually you start binging again.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's to me, like I said, it would be easy to be like, this totally insufficient, what's going on. But then again, how many people have had this type of full on complete and total shift of consciousness, awakening type recovery that occurred instantly, right, over the course of no time, to then come back and have the knowledge and the language and the context to even explain it enough to teach these doctors and medical team.
Are you on speakerphone?
Yeah, I am. You can't hear me?
Or you just seem a little bit not quite as close.
Yeah, that's exactly. I had it sitting on my desk, and let me scoot forward. Anyway, so did you hear anything I just said?
Yep. Yeah, I heard it all.
Okay, well, when you rewatch this video, you'll hear it real plain. Real great.
Okay.
Anyways, so I want to go into you now.
Okay.
So where are you at in this process? It's been a couple weeks.
Yep. And I think I know that I'm chugging along, I'm hanging tough. I like myself, I like myself better in the way that I'm noticing I'm less reactionary and I'm more chill with people. I'm kind of more aware of things that come up inside of me and can kind of deal with them in the more adult way.
So you're taking more time to react?
Yeah, I'm just sort of taking a beat or if I have an overreaction, I can just sort of observe it a little more and not just ride the train.
That's awesome because you're not defending it anymore. So even if you have it, you witness it, go, oh, and then you don't defend it. Where I bet before you used to defend it as if, they deserve that.
Yeah, or I would just be off to the races on my high horse.
Yeah, that's what I meant. You go into denial about it, even though you know you're being a bitch.
And, totally. And I feel, more just kind of like, I kind of more empathy towards other people and the way they're acting. And then,
oh, you know what that means? That means that you're giving yourself more grace and empathy too.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
It's just pretty amazing, I just feel kinder. I just feel like I'm just being, I'm losing some of my kind of where I can have an edge. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of softening some of those edges, it feels like. And, just playing better with others, I guess you could say.
Have you noticed also, you feel more connected? You feel more connected to people?
I do.
It would feel more heart-centered, like a heart connection, like you care, like there's a weird caringness about it that's not codependent or rescuer type caring.
Yeah, and I just don't have to, I can give my opinion on things, but I'm not so much like, what?
Forceful.
You should do that. What did your landlord say? No, that's, you need to tell him, but what's bullshit? I'm
totally. That's forcefulness. You're not being so forceful.
Yeah, and that feels like so amazing. That's so much what I want.
God, that's so great. That's like you're not gatekeeping anymore. You're not the gatekeeper.
Yeah, I'm not gatekeeping. It's not up to me. I'm just minding my own damn business, and that feels really good. And I've kind of noticed, I've had like a few acts of like courage. I've kind of had
that's a big thing.
Courageously, that creative little project I kind of started that was to pitch to somebody that was, it took balls. Let's just put it to you that way. It was
nice.
This huge ballsy stunt that, ultimately was passed on.
But that feels good to know that you're capable of facing things like that. That opens up doors for you. So even if this was passed on, think of all the doors that just opened up with the fact that you're more courageous around exposure.
Yeah, and it could have been a more, respectful, past too that could, lead to other things. Mm-hmm. And again, I noticed that whereas in the past, in this business, it's sort of like every time you pitch something or get going on something, you get real excited, or in the past, it's sort of like, oh, hope is alive again. And then when something's passed on, it just can be so easy to just spiral down like, now all hope is gone.
Well, that's because you were fantasizing before. We've used that word with a lot. Like, right? You're clutching onto it as this has to work.
Yeah.
Not,
my life sucks so bad, and, maybe this is the one chance my life won't suck. And,
so it magnifies how important it is in your mind.
Yeah, and I just noticed that, and I did get my hopes up. I did let myself kind of get my hopes up a bit because it was a really cool, fun, potential thing to do. And, then when it didn't happen, I felt disappointment like a human being, but it didn't feel so black and white. I didn't feel,
You didn't go so low, maybe?
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, now my life is, fucked again. It was like, no, my life's the same way it was before I did that, and that was so courageous. Oh, gosh, I admired that about myself, that I had the balls to do that. And that was cool. And
that what you just described is actually really important, because you're noticing the difference between kind of the inflamed coping, overdrip, like the all or nothingness that is lessening. So when you look at, I want to open that up for a second.
Okay.
Because I think in there is a lot of knowledge in terms of moving forward. If you look at the drive to gamble, because you can see this as a gamble. Like when I have an opportunity, if I go into it thinking that I'm going to win it all, and you don't realize you're gambling, what happens when you put it all out there and it doesn't work out? It feels like loss. So one of the things you just said that I think is significantly in telling about where you're at is the fact that you said, well, nothing has been lost. It's the same as it was before.
Yeah.
Whereas the way you were thinking and the way you were processing things before was, it is now lost. I have now lost. So so you're living in negativity rather than neutrality, right? So to be able to go, well, nothing's really been lost at all. It's exactly the same. That right there, don't you agree? That awareness is really freeing.
Yeah.
To know there is no loss, because the goal here is that when you put yourself out there, we could say, of course it's a gamble. The books I'm writing, total gamble, right? I'm throwing everything out. I am putting out all sorts of information and opening it up to be just destroyed. But the difference is I accept that ahead of time. I'm not using the fantasy of what the possibilities to drive what I'm doing. At all. Right? Imagine if I started fantasizing about potential.
Yeah.
How that might actually change what I'm writing. Right? Because I'm no longer writing from within what I feel is important. I'm writing about the potential of whatever it could happen with it. Right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is knowing that I'm aware that this could be just like, first of all, it might not sell anything. All the money I'm putting into editing, all the money I'm putting into, designing the book and all this stuff, when it's all said and done and it is published, I might not make my money back. So even just going into it, hoping I make my money back is a risk.
Yeah.
So going into it without any attachments to the end result is actually not only allowing me to be authentic and truthful and heart focused about what I'm writing, because I have nothing to hide, right?
Yeah.
It also keeps me from some weird expectation of what I deserve when it's over. So I am the same.
Laser focused.
So I'm kind of. I'm having a hard time with the laser focus right now. So I have too much shit going on, but I'm in moments like, I can stay really present. That's what I think you were saying. You can stay present. Yeah. So I'm really present in it because I'm not afraid of what people think, and I'm not trying to convince people either. I'm just discussing something in my own thoughts. Okay. So where this has to do with you, when you present a project, go into it knowing it's going to be rejected. Just go into it. Just what that does is it takes the risk out of. It allows you to really put your heart into it in a way that's like artwork. So your willingness to do things that are instinctive, they're instinct for you. You'll be willing to just put it out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it was sort of, and also what I kind of took away from it was that it was an opportunity for me to learn, because I went through that thing with my writing partner, that I talked to you about, how I was so like overreactionary and like micromanaging her. And,
relying on her way too much.
It was just an opportunity. I was able to, have a, like, maybe before I would think, oh, you know, it was such a pain in the ass and nothing even came from it. And, you know, I had to just deal with all that shit and then nothing even came from it or something, you know. Whereas now I was sort of like, oh, isn't that cool? Like, it was a chance for, you know, me to kind of work some stuff out with her and to, and within myself. Like, I haven't even, like, talked to her about it at this point. But it just after you and I spoke, totally kind of, you know, changed my attitude towards her, and the rest of the, you know, stuff went much more smoothly because I was chill. I wasn't being so crazy, and that changed the dynamics between us, and it was more fun. You know, it wasn't just this military operation. Like, it's supposed to be fun, and the project was fun, and so I didn't squeeze the joy out of it, and so I just sort of walked away going, awesome, you know, that was, now I'm better prepared for what comes next.
The next one. Yeah, and you're going to get used to the environment and how that works, and you're going to start noticing that your product is better. The end product is better.
Yeah, and also it just felt, you know, again, authentic, as I'm sort of not really knowing, I'm just sort of on, I feel like I'm walking on new little baby legs, like, with my life. Like, what do I want to do and all that? It just felt really authentic that I was interested in doing that. And, you know, now this other fun little project kind of came along and landed in our laps that is pure fun and silliness, that we're just having fun, you know, kind of putting it together, and who knows where it goes. You know, it's going to go. It's another crapshoot. You know, does anyone want a travel show? You know, it's more than a travel show, but whatever. It's just sort of like, who knows? But the fact that we're having fun together, and that the people, you know, the talent that we met is so fun, and we think it's to be a super awesome project. So, and again, it's not like, oh, thank God I have some, maybe this will be it, you know? And again, it's just that attitude, just that black or white, desperate,
survival,
you know, manic shit is sort of dissipating, and it is a miracle. It's a total fucking miracle.
Yeah, would you say this way of being, the way you are, this, like, I don't know what other word to use other than being, this way of being did you even know that you could be this way?
No, not so, I mean, I guess quickly and easily. It hasn't been necessarily quickly and easily, but I think it has been, as far as actually changing my own actual behavior and thoughts. I mean, it's pretty, in a matter of a handful of months, really.
Yeah, and you'll notice that if you take that timeline, but you go into, like, the moments that things shifted, they were moments of shift. Yeah. Like, in this moment, something shifted here. I let that go. That shifted this whole paradigm. And then I lived here. And then there was another moment where I let this go. That completely opened things up more. So you could say, where there were moments where these shifts occurred.
Yeah, so that's true. Took where I'll sit and I take moments. The time to create those moments too. Like, I'll sit and I'll think. I'll be like, I'm now living in, you know, a higher consciousness, and that I'm choosing that I want to learn about myself, and I'm open to seeing things in myself that don't work for me, and I don't have to. I don't live with this scary feeling that I'm actually a shitty person.
Don't you agree what this took for you to have this space? So what you just said to me, in other words, would be, I have this space right now to figure this out.
Yeah.
So whereas before you did not have space at all. And it was like any vulnerability was rejected. There was no space. Whereas now you have the space. Don't you agree? The reason there was no space before is because there was no acceptance of failure in any way.
Yeah.
Really process that right now. Just sit with that.
Acceptance of failure in any way.
So it was pressurized.
Yeah. There's no acceptance of my humanity, or
well, yeah, it's inhumane to do that to yourself, but go back into why it was so pressurized. You couldn't stop and pause Because to do that meant vulnerability. I have to be constantly thinking and working and doing. And if you paused, that meant failure. So to actually question what you were doing, you don't have time for that. That means that you could lose your grip.
Yeah.
You could lose your grip. If I stop what I'm doing, I could sink. So I don't have time for that shit. And so you run by it. You run by this high anxiety. And what you need to do to get rid of it, you can't because it's too risky. And the anxiety, you could say, or that pressurized psychological environment, that anxiety came from fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fear of inadequacy. Fear of, right, which promotes this obsessive compulsiveness, which you could see why you would be drawn to drinking or some type of escape to just relax, because it's not, you can't do it within your own mind, because if you do that, you're going to fail. You're like a lazy piece of shit. You're a quitter. You know, there's weird stigma around that. So but your coping mechanism that is basically relying on something outside of yourself, that's justified. Because you deserve it, right? Because you need it. Because it's too much. You can't relax in your own way of being. So essentially, you could say now what you've done is you've accepted failure. You went, and that's where our first target was. That was like those first few, you know. Just accept you're a piece of shit.
You're a miserable rat.
Just admit it. Just admit that what you're doing is horrible. Because what that does, once someone can accept failure, is it takes the pressure out.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you can breathe for 2 seconds. It's sad. It's like the war's over. So just take a second. You know? The loss is everywhere. It feels like loss everywhere, but the pressure is gone. And so now it's like, I don't want to go back there. There's benefit to the failure. Meaning I now can just be real, and I can just sit in my realness. And I can, obviously, the key here is to not criticize your failure. To not feel that you go into shame. Right? That's where people get paralysis.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about. I could hear someone, I could imagine someone listening to this is going, but without that pressure, why don't you just sit on your butt all day and eat Cheetos? You know what I mean? Yeah. They're just ignorant to what
motivates you. Exactly. How are you going to be motivated if you're not terrified of being a failure?
Right? Don't you need goals?
Oh, God. That fear is some great motivating thing.
You know, but what they're not aware of is that fear has humongous downsides. Of course, the upside is if you look at the level of work and energy that you were expending before, it's massive. It's huge. Like, holy, that's amazing. It's amazing. But it's so extreme. Like, no one should have to be that way just to be neutral. That is so intense. That's full of suffering. That is not okay. You know, and so because you've gone through failure, and the key to this is not feeling bad about yourself, that you can look at it from enough distance to say, this isn't worthy of feeling bad about. In fact, wow, I'm amazed at the capacity that the human brain can stimulate under survival circumstances when there's no room or wiggle room to relax. It's intense. But it came at a high cost. Suffering, paralysis, abusiveness, coping mechanisms that don't necessarily get anything done but create other problems you now have to fix. Mm-hmm. You know, and so by going in and giving it forgiveness and going, okay, that was a big mistake, and being okay with that and not feeling ashamed about it, to go, yeah, that right there, I couldn't do anymore. And should I feel bad about not being able to do that type of work?
Yeah. No,
right? You shouldn't feel bad about it. Yeah, and so that's the part that gives you this space, because if you felt bad about it, what would be different?
I would just be not even able to think straight, or even, I would just be paralyzed.
Yeah,
just go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Despair.
Yeah, and that's where you start to fantasize ways to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's going to be huge. It's manic. Manic. Yeah, manic. Totally manic. You would fit the description of someone with manic depression. Right?
Yeah.
All, nothing. Huge waves of extreme energy towards something, which is a gamble. And then anything that drops it or changes it or shows or indicates that it's not going to work would put you into extreme paralysis and coping.
Yeah, like I said, I did feel disappointed. And, I was kind of gauging my disappointment. I was just sort of observing it. And I was like, okay, is this, extreme, or is this, and then I just sort of said, no, I gave myself grace. I said, of course you're going to be disappointed. You're a human being. You're like, you worked for something, you hoped for something, and it didn't happen. And now you're disappointed.
And then the next step is accepting it.
Yeah, then it was just give yourself a break. Be disappointed as long as you want to be disappointed. Like, don't judge yourself. And it wasn't. And that's how I kind of was really gauging it and watching it and feeling how the difference from before, like, the disappointment would take on a whole other level. It would open like this cavern underneath it.
Totally. And all this evidence of suckiness.
Yeah, or just a fear and just freaking out over my life. And here, now I have nothing. It felt so good to have something for a minute of hope. Now I have nothing. Just be so big and just take me down, for just, okay, and have to just, I don't know. I just noticed that it just sort of stayed at a reasonable human level of disappointment.
And then at some point you went into acceptance.
Yeah, moves into acceptance. Kind of moved into what I immediately, I saw the good things that came, that I mentioned.
Okay, pause. I mentioned acceptance a couple times. You just skip right over it. The key to that, where you came next, is accepting the loss of it. All right, okay, I put my energy into it. I was open to the possibilities. I'm not the right fit. We don't have the right product.
Mm-hmm.
Bummer. However, it is what it is. It's not the right fit. And then all of a sudden, what happens to, where did your head go? Gratitude towards, oh my God, now I feel like we've kind of got a better understanding of our teamwork. And it was like our first ability to present something without that insane pressure,
Yeah.
The acceptance aspect of it is really where we're working. Is not going into that victim position, the martyr complex, which takes things, that's like poison. Like you're drinking poison for some reason because you think it's going to do something. When in reality, So if we want to really just intellectually explain why this is so much easier, because you're not going into the martyr complex, you're facing reality and you're accepting it as it occurs. Now, if you didn't,
that's cool.
Right? So you could say, well, your feelings of disappointment were there until, so the time that it takes for you to accept it is the time you sit in disappointment in the negative aspect of it, which is human. How long do you want to sit in that?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to need to be whatever length it is until you accept it. Once you accept it, now you can reconcile it. Reconcile is like, what did I learn? What would I do different? Then we get into gratitude because you can see you're learning so much about yourself and your partner and you're learning so much.
Yeah.
So it's like, that wasn't a failure. It's only a failure if you don't learn something. You only lost if you didn't learn something. Because if you either win or you learn something. There is no in between.
That's cool. That also reminds me of this other thing that happened, which is, I had this great weekend with my mom and sister, and my sister and I went out one night, and we met these two men, and they just were these nice men from Chicago. One was married, so it was, it wasn't like a big romantic thing. But we just hit it off and chatted and were friends, and they asked us, they told us where they were going to be watching the Super Bowl the next day, and And so we went and took my mom and ended up watching the Super Bowl with them. And one of the men was, you know, at first I kind of overlooked him a little bit because he's kind of short and has a little paunch and is balding. But he, you know, but once I stopped and really looked at him, I'm like, wait, this man is so handsome and so warm. And I just kind of was like, started to adore him. I just thought he was just seemed really.
Is he single?
Cool. And he was single, and he was like coming up on 60s, like, you know. And I've always thought, oh, these older guys are going to be just such fuddy duddies, but he wasn't. And so we ended up watching the Super Bowl with them, and it was just a very different experience for me than normal with men, because normally I'll meet a man and we'll have like an instant chemistry, there'll be all this flirting, and I'll just know it's in the bag, and we're gonna, you know, it's just kind of this. But with this guy, it wasn't really like that. He never really overtly hit on me. I was, you know, a little bit like nervous, and it wasn't just such an easy flirty thing. It was like, no, I had to really actually be like myself.
Well, don't you agree? That's what our goal is for you to be real and not go into that narcissism. The narcissism is really good at the fake facade of it, right? That's easy.
Yeah, that just is so easy for me to roll with like the sexual chemistry thing, you know.
Again, that is so unnatural, or that's like narcissism.
It just leads to disaster. It doesn't lead to any great connection in the end.
Because it's not, you're not relying on your heart. You're relying on some way of manipulating people. It's a way to manipulate people. Oh, this is awesome. Oh my God.
And so this man, you know, he lives in Chicago, and, you know, he never really did hit on me, but, you know, I did get he gave me his number, and it's like, if you're ever in Chicago, like, whatever, and I kind of left, and it stayed with me, because I was sort of like, okay, in some ways, I would wish that he did, you know, hit on me, and so I was kind of had to go down, like, struggle, like, okay, in a way, this is a little bit feels like rejection, because I would have liked for him to have, but I was way less, I wasn't really.
He gave you his phone number.
Yeah, he gave me his phone number.
Okay, that's kind of a big deal.
It wasn't like, you know, I'm just so used to, like, a touch, or like, oh, hey, or oh, let's go outside, you know, I don't know, it was just a whole different ballgame for me. But I left, and it's kind of stayed with me for a couple days as I was processing everything I was feeling about the whole interaction, and I realized that, you know, it crossed my mind, okay, maybe I wasn't his body type. Maybe he didn't like my look. And it was kind of, again, it wasn't going down the rabbit hole, you know, feeling all the shame. I just kind of said to myself, you know, well, is it worth it to you to go through torture and hell so that you can try to be sure that this guy will be attracted to you and wants your body? Like, I kind of had to went through the thing in my head, and it was like, no, I would rather be rejected by him and a million other men like him and spend the rest of my life alone than to go back down and to start obsessing. Why would I really just start wanting to go on a diet now so that maybe this guy
yes!
So I came to acceptance.
Yep.
And then after acceptance, all of a sudden I have this gratitude. I was like, wait, this is really cool. Like, maybe I'm actually changing my energy, so I'm actually just drew a different kind of energy to me. Mm-hmm. And maybe normally in the past, where I like tall guys, I have a type. And that I first sort of went, oh, he's not really my type. He's kind of shorter and balding with a little paunch, but like... But then I looked and saw him as a person and saw how warm and handsome he is, and just went, oh, no, I could totally be into this person. And by the same token, perhaps, you know, I have a better chance now of attracting someone that's going to see me for who I am in my entirety, and not
because that's what you're presenting is you in your entirety. You're not presenting a facade and overreaching for something.
Yeah, I just sort of, I don't know, it just kind of ended up being something that sort of stayed with me, but sort of felt like, it did feel like a victory that I didn't, because I didn't feel that, you know, when I was around him, you know, I didn't feel, I was aware, I didn't feel all paranoid. I didn't have those paranoia, like, I'm just a fat chick sitting here holding this guy.
That's because you didn't overreach. And so the other thing is, it's a big deal to go into acceptance. So go ahead of time and accept that someone who is really focused, just use yourself as the example. Someone who is like my old me, who is very facade oriented, is already rejecting me.
Yeah.
I don't need to work on this. I've already been rejected.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to be myself and allow the process to naturally occur. And if this person requires I lose weight, well, I've already been rejected. So thank God I'm eliminating an asshole from my life before they even get involved.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so just giving yourself, going into accepting that you are absolutely not good enough for people. Again, this is how I'm writing my book, dearie. It gives you the freedom to be yourself and real, and that you don't have to go into these alternative personas.
Yeah.
And it opens yourself up to think of the amount of people you've rejected in your life superficially.
Yeah, that's true.
Massive amounts, right?
Sure I have. Yeah.
Yeah, where you didn't even notice.
Yeah.
They're just not an option. You know, where you create your own rejection early.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so can you see why then you would have to be so pressurized and paranoid and worried about it? Because you're kind of eliminating so much possibility with your own narcissism, seeking out other people who'd be attracted to that.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that you have to be perfect, and they need to notice it. You know, you're performing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm doing a little tap dance.
Totally.
You know?
And that right there is sucky.
Fun, and you'll never be bored with me.
Yeah, and that means you have to be like that at all times.
Ugh, God.
Right? So can you remember when I was like before, it was so extreme, so radical, the amount of work that went into just kind of relating to someone. Once you go into accept failure, you accept it early as the truth that you don't have to manage that anymore. If you can accept it, you don't have to manage it. And so the goal here is that you continue to just accept reality as it unfolds. And if we can get you to accept rejection now, early, in all forms, then you don't have to wait for it to happen for you to then face it.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, just know there are people that are functioning the way, and there's people that you're just not, it's not going to work. It's like you're not the right fit for the job.
Right.
The other people should find the best fit for the job.
Yeah, I even went through that in my head. I was like, first of all, you don't even know his situation, if he has girlfriends or if he's in, you have no idea where he's even coming from. And then I just went into, let's just go there. Let's say that he thinks I'm great, but I'm too fat for him.
Yes, so go into it now and you accept it.
Go into it now, Kristen. Let's just go there. And it was just sort of, I kind of, whatever,
No, you did it. You did it. I love what...
different few little feelings kind of fleetingly went by. And then I just said, that doesn't make him a bad person. That doesn't make him, there's nothing wrong with him. That's his conditioning. That's his type, whatever. And he should go find that.
Yes.
He's a nice guy. He should go find if he likes.
You got it. And you're not. Yeah. Well, and the thing I love what you said is when you said, I am not willing to suffer for anybody ever. Not one human being on this planet is worth suffering that much for, just for them to touch your arm and say you're great. No.
Yeah.
It's not. Like nobody should have to work that hard.
That they are sexually attracted to me. Oh, woohoo.
Yeah, exactly. They get the sexual attractiveness and you're just living in hell. On fire.
Yeah, because sexual attractiveness is just such a special, rare commodity in this world.
There's just none. Exactly.
Like, big whoop.
I know.
I tell young girls all the time, like, trust me, if you give them a boner, you didn't pull off anything incredible.
And that's the truth, right? It doesn't take, and if it takes that much for them to have a boner, you might want to pass.
Yeah, or it's just like, is that really my my big goal in life. It's like,
so it's not just accepting the truth that does exist, but it's realizing too that even if it does exist, you're not willing to do that anymore. So win-win.
Yeah.
So facing that really gives you the freedom to just allow yourself to be more real and connected. So when are you going to contact him? When are you going to call him? When are you going to?
Oh gosh. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Aren't I sort of taking a break for a minute because I'm trying to get my shit together?
I guess so. But if you really like the guy and maybe he's over there going, oh, she thinks I'm old and balding and ugly.
I'll probably text him. He's going to be coming out here and going to Palm Springs in a week for a little golfing thing.
All right.
Which he told me about. I'm going to be out there these days.
Okay, so hold on a second. Let's plan this out because you might throw him a bone and he might not take it. So you just need to be ready if you contact him and say, hey, I'm so excited for you to come out. I really enjoyed my time with you. Let's get together. What are your plans this night? Let's meet up for a cocktail. What if he doesn't respond?
I will be disappointed like a human being for a short period of time.
Well, what we're doing is we're going through it ahead of time, so you resolve it before it even happens.
Which I already kind of did, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I kind of already planned it out in my head. Look, I'm going to text him. There's a chance he might not answer. If he doesn't answer, what's that going to feel like? And I was like, well, I'll be kind of bummed but I will move on. I'm not going to.
It's not a fit.
Yeah, it's not going to be a big deal, really. Mm-mm. It's not.
There's no loss, really.
It's just another act of courage, which I've just been taking lately.
I love it. Well, the loss comes when you attach to the outcome.
Yeah. Or the outcome means, if he texts me back, that means, look, that means I am attractive.
Yeah, exactly.
That means he thinks I'm fat, so I should go hide. Like, literally, seriously.
Oh my God, this is so funny. I'm loving this conversation so much right now.
There was a day, it would be like, I can't wait to find out what I am today. Is this person going to answer my lovable or not? Come on, dude, let me know.
Well, the thing is this, if it is meant to be, it will happen naturally without any manipulation. It'll be natural for him too. He'll be like, of course, oh my God, yeah. And it'll be super natural. Because even if it does work out, it just may not work out for whatever reason. So if it doesn't work out sooner, that's a benefit. If it works out later, that's a benefit. It's all beneficial. Yeah. And so the only way you feel deficit is if you attach or have an expectation or put your insecurities or your wants and dreams onto him.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe where we need to go at this point, you don't need to change anything you're doing. So don't change anything. But one of the things I want you to think about is, can I accept the loss of my hopes and dreams? Meaning, what if I never get married? What if I never find another human being to be with? And what if that's just not my life's result?
Yeah.
So that once you go and accept that, okay, what would happen then to the pressure of putting yourself out there?
Well, I've been doing that. I mean, that's something that, that's been on my plate of things to accept.
So think of it this way. What if we could go and tell the future and we could see in your future you're going to be 85 and you're basically going to be alone, okay? Not alone because you have family and you have nieces and nephews and you have all sorts of love around you. It's just you're not with a man, mm-hmm. right? You have all sorts of other aspects. So then what would dating be to you?
Like if I just knew for sure it wasn't going to work out?
Well, if you knew that, what would you still date, knowing that what would be the benefit of interacting with men? Would there be a benefit for you to interact with men?
I guess could be a physical benefit. And animalistic.
Yeah, just well, the pressure on the person you're with to meet that need would drop significantly. And so, the all or nothing mentality would be like, well, then why would you even go out and get the opportunity to just sit in your hole and think your life is a fucking shit?
Yeah, that was like, I had like a knee-jerk thought go, oh, well, then forget it, I'm never dating.
Then what's the point? So what's the other benefit of just interacting with people and enjoying yourself? You know, it sounds like when you were hanging out with those guys, it was kind of fun. You enjoyed yourself. Met someone new.
Like, I'm so used to kind of these boyish boys that are, not necessarily established, or that I'm going to help them fulfill their potential. It was just so nice to be around these men that are established, have businesses.
And they don't need you. They don't need you.
They don't need shit from me. They're completely... Are you kidding? They're like good to go. They live one guy lives half the year in Laguna and the other half in Chicago. When it gets cold, he comes to Laguna, and this guy is his best friend and comes out and visits him all the time, and has a friend building something on the Hollywood Strip and the Sunset Strip, and they're not they don't brag. They're so chill and mellow about it. They're just obviously well dressed, nice gentlemen that are men.
Yeah, well, and it was easy.
It's different. That's like alone right there is kind of different than for me. So I liked it. I liked that it was out of my comfort zone and my normal. So that was sort of told me, okay, maybe I'm actually changing because I'm changing where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah, what's not worth messing with. And, it's easy. That's another word to describe it. Well, that was easy. Didn't take much work at all. And it was enjoyable. And it didn't require all this intense anxiety and panic and paranoia and work and like obsessiveness. And,
it kind of made me, it was work in that, I felt it was just a little new for me to, like, I felt nervous, a little more nervous than I would normally feel around a guy that I felt was not, I don't know. I don't want to say, where normally I'm really comfortable around guys that I feel like I want to keep wanting to say that are below me, but that's super snobby. Like, just that I just feel like they're not going to challenge me, like that I'm going to be the one teaching them. I'm going to be the one inspiring them. Like, that's so been my role. Like, I'm going to, you're a dreamer? Let me help motivate you dream together, or help motivate you, or you can do this.
You're not going to do that ever again. You don't even need to worry about that. You'll never do that again.
But then just be around this man who's just like, wow, this actually feels good that I'm like sitting up straighter and actually, just can't shoot my mouth off, like, or I'm kind of thinking about what I say a little bit, like, I don't want, like, just, but it felt good in a way, like, no, think about this is who you're presenting, be yourself, but, I don't know, it's hard, but I think you know what I mean.
I do.
It's just, I had to dig deeper and, like,
you had to not
be a woman, like, I had to, like, bring my woman to the table, not some little flirty bar chick, like, who.
I love it. Okay, so with that said, go into the fact that this is, again, the relaxing nature of a relationship that is occurring naturally.
Mm-hmm.
There's no pressure. There's no anxiety. You're being yourself 100%.
Yeah.
And so if he's attracted to that and he enjoys that, and the other part is that he's being natural. Wouldn't you want him to be as pure and natural as possible, so that you get an authentic indication of your compatibility in reality, right? So if it requires a ton of work for you to be compatible, are you really compatible?
Yeah, no, I guess
you're not at all. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it didn't feel that way. Like we couldn't. It didn't feel like I had to try to. It didn't feel like a negative thing. It felt like a breath of fresh air. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That was like your last relationship. What I just tried.
Yeah.
Okay. So this relationship, it's like, so it really serves you to get rejected early.
Yeah.
So that's why you just be real up front. You show them this body. You want to get rejected early, because if it's unnatural or requires you starve yourself to be thinner, or requires that you make all these changes, or if it requires he make all these changes, it's not compatible.
Yeah.
So your goal is that you stay authentic and real in your reality with everybody.
Or just be conscious too, like, because in the, like, to be unconscious, I just kind of go with, that persona that I'm used to kind of going with men. Like, that's easy.
Yeah, it would be.
Just to slide into it, like, oh, hey, yeah, oh, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's easy, but it's actually more difficult in the long run because you don't really know if they're even attracted to the real you. They're attracted to the persona. So that's, it's easy impulsively because you're hiding your truth, but in the end, it's extremely difficult. It is like extreme difficulty.
Yeah.
Then
I'm like seeking approval all of a sudden.
The same thing goes with, the thinnerness. It's like in dieting. I want to use this as a parallel for you to hear it. You have to be willing to eat like a regular human being to find out what the real body is. Mm-hmm. Right? So it doesn't make sense. If you aren't willing to understand the realness of the body, you have to suffer faking it with extreme diets. So do you see how that goes parallel? Like if I'm not going to show the real self, then I'm stuck constantly being this persona in fear that if the real me comes out, they'll reject me.
Yeah.
So in a way you can look at, that's how people treat the body. Like I have to diet because I'm afraid of the reality of the body.
Yeah. That's true.
It's how you're relating to people. It's like your body is a form of relationship. So when you look at that way, you can say, well, I've treated the body with the same relation as I have men.
Wow, that's true. I can see that.
Yeah, and so the moment you're willing to accept the body as it is in its truth, now you no longer are held to these incredibly abusive restrictions that trigger your animal needs to eat, And now the next layer is how people relate to the body, which is, it's like the next layer up. Now you have to deal with, well, if I am going to be this way, I have to be okay with what other people think.
Yeah.
Right? And so once you are like, you know what, I'm okay if he doesn't like this body, that's a big step forward because you've done it within yourself. Now the willingness to do it and expose it to others. This is the real body with me. I'm not willing to change it at this point. So you either, if you're using body image to define me as a potential person or not, reject me now because I'm not willing within myself to do it for you. I'm not doing it for me, and I'm not doing it for you either.
Yeah, which, I'm just like, I still feel like I'm on baby legs where, that is concerned sometimes. Like, I'm still, I don't know, I guess all that being said, I've definitely noticed a sort of underlying, just sort of an emptiness and kind of a sadness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That might be just grieving your grief. That's sadness is when you've accepted loss.
I feel like, almost like
sadness is the next step.
All this shit has been removed mentally, that all of a sudden I am still left with, what does this mean now for myself? What does this mean for my life? What is this? If I'm not going to do that, I don't know, I just kind of still feel, I don't know, I'm trying not to, panic about it, and then, I look, and then as far as my body goes, I'm still, working some things out with it, because, I do still, my ankle is kind of flared up, and, I'm limping around, and the physicality, step 2, accept your current weight, ailment, size, limitations, your current reality.
Yep.
And so I've started, I've got maybe 30-something years left, and I'm, just really having to, I'm going to be this size or bigger.
Yeah.
What's it going to be like? I'm trying to planning this trip to Italy in September. I just told my friend who I'm going with, I said, look, I've got an ankle issue. I'm pretty fucking big and heavy, and I'm going to be this big or bigger, chances are in September, because she's more like spry, and I don't want to, I'm just sort of kind of trying to just accepting that.
Good job. I've been holding my tongue to say you're in the process of accepting. And it sucks until the moment you accept it. So the suckiness that you still feel is going to be there until the moment you actually look at it with your mind wide open and accept it as it is.
And there are moments where I do. It's just sometimes I feel like, there's still these little bubbles that kind of bump here. Like,
well, those are the bubbles are the conditions. Those are conditions around it. Like, I will accept it under this condition. And so when the condition that you don't want arises, now your acceptance is gone.
Or just feeling a little bit scared, I guess. Just a little bit scared. Like, is it...
Can I handle it?
I handle it?
Yeah, okay. That's relevant because there is that aspect to it. Can I handle it? And so you'd have to look at it with your eyes open. Okay, you might be thinking about it, but not really opening your eyes to, if this is my physical ailment in life, permanently, if this is your physical ailment.
Yeah, and I work on accepting that. I literally will be like, some people have chronic pain in their head that sears through their brain every day. Some people have
lost limbs.
There's different levels of it, and this is what you have. You're physical. You're not a gazelle.
See it as like a disability if you want to go for it. If this is it.
Yeah, and
so go into your capacity to actually live. Can you handle it? So that just takes thoughts. Remember, it really takes a moment of open-minded thought. So once you accept it, it's almost what it's going to feel like, Chrissy. It's going to feel like you are making it permanently that way by thinking about it. That's what it freaking feels like. It's crazy. If I think about it, it's going to happen.
Like, is this the pit level? Like my ankle situation, like I'm having a flat freaking arch. Like, is surgery going to help? They don't know. Like, how is this going to be?
So just go there.
I have to walk around on this ankle for another 30-something years.
Yes, so go there. Keep in mind how you got it. So, the perpetual dieting and overeating and dieting. So just go into the reality of it forever, being for 30. This is it. So go into that. If you become a victim of it, you're never going to get to acceptance.
I know. And I haven't.
Is it really that bad?
I'm aware of when I have totally felt sorry for myself.
Like, and that's where your suffering comes in. So you can be aware of that all you want, but you can't.
I don't think it's a total pity party. It's just kind of coming back to,
okay, so let's just really go. Follow me here.
Okay.
Can you handle that? If that's the rest of your life, if it means you are free from the fucking hellhole that you caused this outcome. Okay, because you caused it. So the body's not doing it to you. You did this to your body. So can you even afford to be pitied?
There's hormonal, sometimes it just happens. Even if, like Point Blank said, you could lose 50 pounds and we can't promise you your ankle's going to do better. So I kind of let go.
Okay, so go back. Let me finish what I was saying.
Okay.
Do you want freedom from...
Yes.
So you have to go into what the cost is for that freedom. If you really want freedom, you're going to have to look at the permanence. And I'm going to go back to what I was trying to explain to you. What it feels like is if you open your eyes and look at it, that it is making it happen. It is sucky. And so I want you to open your eyes and I want you to feel what I'm describing to you. If I open my eyes and look at the permanence of my flat, fucked up fate, it's going to be real. It's going to happen. It's like if I look at it permanently, it's almost like if I look at it, it's going to happen. Do you feel that? If I look at the permanence of that, it's going to happen. Just don't look at it. So what you're doing is you're putting that into denial space. Just don't go there. Don't go there because you can't handle it. So you're working on all these other things, but that's something where you're trying to black out from existence because if you look at it, it might stay and you don't want it to.
Yeah.
Is that describing this accurately? it'll feel is if I look at that permanence, that's like going to make it stay permanently. So I can't look at that because I can't handle it if it does. So that's an assumption coming from fear, right? I can't handle it. That's coming from your fear. Well, let's look at it together. If your feet stay this way forever, it is permanently damaged. Irreparable damage that has happened.
Which it has, but I'm just like, okay, is it going to get the pain going to get worse?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Let's not create drama that doesn't. Can you handle it? So go look at what you have done. You handled mental illness on a freaking crazy level.
Yeah.
And it was recoverable.
Yeah.
That's a miracle. So what if the dues to get out of mental illness is that you have this feet problem?
Yeah.
It's your karma. You get to serve it. Would you rather go back into hell or serve your karma physically? It is what it is.
Yeah.
Again, here is your reality. Can you handle it? You have to look at it with your eyes open to come to the conclusion. So the fear of I can't handle it means I'm not looking at it. It's there and I don't want to look at it. I just don't want to acknowledge it right now because I don't think I can handle it. Well, fear is always going to be there. And I think that's where your vulnerability is coming from. That would be my guess. She's not quite looking at that one because it still makes her, she's not willing to accept that. Even though you trying to fix your body is ultimately the cause of it. Like that's the cause. So if you don't want to continue to cause more damage, you have to really look at it being permanent. So, because if you're not going to do anything about it anymore, it is permanent. So go into the permanence. Just open your mind to that. Can you handle it? Is this something you can work around to where you can adapt to it? You can adapt your life to it.
Yes, I can. I am.
Well, that's the funny thing is you have been this whole time.
First
it's an illusion.
Flared up like 6 months ago. There was hope that it's gonna get better. Like I've had things flare up before, or my heel hurt, or this or that. But then to find out, okay, your arch has collapsed, and it doesn't. Some people their arch collapses and they don't have pain. But I'm one of them that your arch collapses and there is pain that goes with it, and it's irreversible. And maybe the pain will get better, and it does come and go with physical therapy, and maybe it's going to get better, and maybe it's not. And just kind of accepting, the fleeting days of my youth where I could get around easier and get here and get there, and noticing people as they walk by briskly, like, oh, they're so lucky. Look at, they get to walk, their feet don't hurt, or just kind of having to.
See, that comes from your martyr complex. That's a victim way of seeing things.
Right there, I know that is a little bit.
A little bit. That's the perfect definition of it.
Just kind of thinking that they're lucky. They look lucky.
Right, because you're not.
And walking like, oh, they're so lucky.
Why does that matter? See, so that the only reason that would matter is if you feel like you're a victim and you're positioned as my life sucks. That's why you would. So it's irrelevant. So I have all these back issues. Do you think I walk around and see they don't have back issues? They don't have back issues. Why would I do that if I accept?
Yeah.
What do I want to feel resent? What does it serve? You have to really look at that position. If you accept it, does it even make sense to care about other people that don't have fallen arches?
Yeah, that's true.
I know. So you get something out of your resentment for that. So that might be why you don't want to accept it, because there's something you like about feeling like, No,
it's just weird. I've been pretty blessed my whole life. But
okay, so let's just go into the relevance of this being permanent. You keep on trying to escape the idea of it.
Yeah.
You need
I'm staring at it. I'm staring at my foot as we speak.
Now stare at it emotionally around. This is the cost for you to be free and to. Can you handle that? Could you handle a wheelchair?
I suppose.
Oh, poor me.
I won't look cool or sexy because I can learn to pop wheelies.
You're right. I mean, as soon as yeah. I mean, a wheelchair doesn't take away from your creativity. It doesn't take away from your ability to experience like beauty in music or art or in any form. You still have all of your faculties to understand the relevance of life and consciousness. It doesn't take away any of your learning capacity at all. Nothing. Period. Zero.
Yeah.
Oh, really soak that in for a second. What is life really about? And what is the point? What do you really need from a body to have a life that has infinite potential of experience?
Consciousness.
That's it. Pretty much. You just need to be aware. And it does everything for you. Everything for you. So part of the problem is that to you, it's doing nothing for you. It's taking things away. So your viewpoint is feeling sorry for yourself. So you have no gratitude for the infinite work that it's doing for you. You don't even recognize it. The fact that your ears are hearing me right now is huge. You're not doing anything. You haven't done shit for your ears to work. It's just giving that to you, right? I mean, you're looking at this experience with this body as if it is constantly ruining your life. When in reality, your expectations of it have been nowhere close to reality, right? And so you're still positioned to feel like it has done you wrong. When in reality, your perception is constantly diminishing the relevance of this body. You know, when it comes time for you to leave this body, you're going to really miss it. You're going to, in the moment of death, and you are released from this body, you're going to witness the incredible life it provided you. And you're going to go, why didn't I see that while I had it? Well, because you saw that your feet had flat arches. And everybody else's life is better than mine, because you don't really appreciate what you have. That's where you're stuck. That's why you're kind of waffling in that spot.
Yeah.
So you really kind of have to ask, well, okay, if I'm conscious, what do I need? What can't I get around? You can come out of a terrible mental illness. Can you handle flat arches? And the pain that comes and goes.
Yeah.
That's easy. That's so fucking easy. Right? Why catastrophize that? Why even catastrophize that?
Yeah. I mean, which I catastrophized it more before, this just feels sort of like some last gasps of acceptance.
Yeah. Well, would you accept this permanently if it meant freedom? If you had to sign on the dotted line, this is the cost of permanent freedom, is you're going to have to just deal with this. It's going to come and go. You've been dealing. It's going to remain the same forever. It might get worse. Then you're going to do something. It gets better. There's potential surgery. There's all sorts of medical avenues that may or may not work. Nothing's a guarantee. So this is your next 30 years or so.
And then, I have...
Are you willing to pay that price for freedom from all the baggage that caused it?
Yes, I am.
Seems easy, doesn't it?
Pay that. And that's possible. I'll think to myself, just look at this as, okay, you handed over someone a bag filled with all your mental bullshit and torture, and then they handed you like a bag of rocks to carry. Would you rather carry the rocks, or would you rather, the rocks are easier because you can like feel them in your hand, you can feel their weight, you know what you're doing. You're carrying a bag of rocks. That's easier. That's easier compared to all the mental.
See, that's not quite the right comparison, because what you're doing, I understand what you're doing, but there's a limit to that thought process.
Yeah.
Because you're still having to focus on the rocks, and I'm still burdened by the rocks, and I have to hold the rocks. Well, no, that's not how it works.
And then I will have occasionally the thought will come into my head, well, maybe my body will correct itself, and then there'll be less rocks to carry, but I can't think about that,
no.
and I can't care about that.
You can't rely on it. You can't rely on it. It's
not about that I'm going to look better with less rocks, but, just it would be less to carry around. And
you can't rely on that.
Yeah.
So what's the point even going there? You cannot, if you want to be free, can you rely on that? Can you gamble on that?
Or count on it, or need it, or want it.
You have to eliminate it from possibility and go into the worst case scenario. Because if you go into the worst case scenario, basically you're giving yourself total and complete freedom to allow the body to do whatever it's going to do without your fucked up narcissism trying to control the outcome.
Yeah.
Right?
Narcissism. Like having a dog in the race or whatever.
Exactly.
Like I can't even have anything.
I don't want to rely on it. I don't want anything to do with it. So think about if you get another body, the vulnerabilities of the next body that could potentially occur in a lifetime.
What?
I said, If you get another body, think of all the potential vulnerabilities that body could experience in a lifetime.
Right.
Do you really want to sit back and try to maintain your own one concept of what you can accept throughout that entire lifetime again?
Never.
Right? What a waste. You would just go, okay, well, what am I born in? Do I have fingers? Well, that's a freaking luxury. Okay, whatever. And if it's fat, do you really want to care about that? You want to fix that?
I mean, is it just not even good to even have is it okay to say, yeah, it would be nice if I had less?
Not with the belief systems that you've had. So go back again. We're going to start over. So we'll go back and really think about this. Do you really want to focus on the niceness of being thinner with your next body?
No.
Oh, there's your answer. Do you really want to focus on that? Do you want that to be a focus in the next life? Do you really want this to happen again?
So it's sort of because of my fucked up beliefs and what I've been through, that it's just, if I was a normal person that didn't have this mental illness and I took steroids or something happened or I put on whatever, and if I unemotionally thought, oh shit, this feels heavy to carry around, like, but it's just that I can't even go there because of my...
Do you want to focus on it the way you have? Do you really want to make it important? No. So the problem is the importance that you've put onto it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's not the fatness or the thinness or anything in between. It's what you symbolize it and the importance you've given it. Dude, would you really, if you were born into a body that's metabolically needs more body fat at its natural point, do you really want to have to fix that again?
Mm-mm.
What if that is the way it is?
I know that I can't. That's.
No, you could. You could. We both know you could.
I went through this whole thing with myself today, or the other day. I was like, the only reason you're even in recovery, or like working to be in recovery right now, the only reason you're even doing this is because you failed at losing weight. If you could have fucking lost, then I thought, I think that might be bad.
Okay, I want to go. I need you to come back to where we were. So if you got a new body, and you got... And it was overweight, naturally, that's the body it is that something you're going to want to fix?
Not if anybody didn't tell me I was supposed to.
Okay, so stop relying on other people. It's your free will here. You just denied your own free will and said it's someone else's problem I have to think about. So let's go back to the question again. If you got it, just focus in on the question as if this is a true and real thing. Just go into the realness of it. You were given another body. Would you want to make it thinner?
No.
So how do you then move forward in that body and the potential, again, the lifetime of physical potential that has in a lifetime you could be experiencing? Do you want to focus on the body again the same way, to the same degree of any form?
God, no.
Okay, see, that's okay. So before you inhabit that body, what do you have to do to get the freedom from doing all that shit?
Just accept whatever it's going to be.
Yes, and how does that feel? Like, what would it feel like to go into that body, into complete and total acceptance of whatever it actually is? And whatever it experiences in a lifetime of physical vulnerabilities.
feel fine and effortless and just fine. I wouldn't feel any torture or conflict.
Mm-mm. Nothing at all. You would just you would inhabit it. You would be like, all right, here it is. And what does that give you now? What do you get once you accept? I'm in a body, and it's gonna be vulnerable to whatever it's gonna be. And if I can accept whatever that is, then I don't have to focus my entire soul life on fixing it, avoiding it, or changing the body. What does that give you?
Freedom.
Yeah, like a ton of freedom. Like a lot. That means you don't have to worry about people that don't like your body, because it's not their body. So you don't have to fix it for other people. You can just be like, I can just ignore people that don't, you can just ignore them. They have no power anymore. They have no, right? So if you would be willing to do that with the next body, why wouldn't you be willing? Why doesn't this body deserve the same freedom? What did this one do so wrong here to where this body does not deserve that? Or why can't you implement that wisdom now with this body? Right? If you're born in another body and you don't have the use of your legs, you're going to be in a wheelchair that entire life. The only way to move forward is to accept it early, like almost instantly, if you can, right? If you have the choice, right? So if you can't accept that, what does that mean?
Just gonna have a life of struggling.
Yep, and misery and feeling sorry for yourself and constantly feeling bad. And you might as well commit suicide, which many people do who live in that martyr complex, right? Until they can accept it. What happens the moment they just accept it?
And they're free.
Yeah. Now they're starting their life. That's when life begins. So there is a component of, can I handle that? Could you handle that? Well, once you go through acceptance, now go into handling it. So if this is the physicality of the body, the worst case scenario, right? If absolutely nothing changes and the body stays kind of in the same way it's been, that is the worst case scenario-ish.
Yeah.
Could you accept this because of the freedom that you'd gain by accepting it? Because if you can accept it as it is, with its ailments, with the fact that it's gonna die and you're gonna have to leave this body at some point, for whatever reason, if you can accept that, what does that mean for you?
So then I can just be free.
Yeah, now you're living. You can inhabit it and you can say, I can handle this. I'm its buddy. I'm its partner. I'll take care of it. But I'm not going to dedicate my life to feeling bad about this. Like, I'm miserable because I'm stuck with a shitty body.
Yeah.
You become partners, right? Something that you can actually appreciate and care about in less narcissistic and self-righteous way, right? The self-centeredism is out of it. It's not you, then the body. It's like us. It's like, it's providing me consciousness, and that's all I really need. So whatever it needs is effortless. Whether it's going to the bathroom, going for a walk, if I need to go stretch because it's got some pain in its foot. It's not my foot, it's its foot. You become more of you're appreciative and caretaking rather than,
And it just kind of came to me that accepting or just having to really face that there are some last gasps of narcissism, lugging the body, or like you can't really look cool and sexy when you're like, you know, struggling up a flight of stairs.
Are you willing to surrender cool and sexy? You willing to never be cool and sexy again?
Man.
Because that's what you have to give up, is your cool and sexiness.
Yeah.
To get that freedom. And to really connect in a loving way. Do you really want cool and sexiness?
Yeah, that's also what I'm looking at.
Well, so if you accept this as it is, you would have to, that means you're not going to be cool and sexy.
Sounds so stupid.
I know, but it's not when it comes to your psychologically, because that's your survival mode, right? So you have to be willing to not be cool and sexy. That's the loss. Yeah. So really ask yourself the question. It means I will never be cool and sexy again. Is that worth, that's what I have to pay. I have to put cool and sexy back in the box and return it.
Oh, man.
You know, you can have cool and sexiness. That's the illusion, right? Is that I can be cool and sexy when I'm thinner.
Or just, you know, it's just at the point where there's it's like, no, I mean, I haven't even been able to wear heels for, 4 months. Yep. I don't know if I'll ever wear them again. Like, I just wear, like, tennis shoes now, like, because I need them with orthopedics in them.
Exactly. Are you?
I'm around in my titties.
Yep, so go there. You got it. So go there. You can't, like, don't hide from what you have to surrender. I mean, really go into the surrendering of it. And something's going to come up. And then no one's going to love you. And then everybody's going to think you're a piece of shit. And then no one's going to take you credible. And as things arise, you go, can I accept that? The goal is that everything that arises, you say, if it means freedom, I will pay that cost. I will accept that. And it needs to be permanent. Permanent.
Yeah.
Permanent. I will never be sexy. If that's the cost. Are you willing? And there has to be a sense of willingness to that. So I'm directing you right now. I'm actually giving you instructions. When those feelings arise, ask yourself, am I willing to let go of cool and sexy if it means I am free from this? If you're not willing to give up cool and sexy, can you see how then you have to hold on to this baggage.
Yeah.
Do you see that? I'm not willing to and can you see that's what you've been holding on to, which is why your recovery has been kind of at a standstill or is hitting a stop point.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it's, cool and sexy slipping through my fingers. Like, it's gone. Like, it's just.
Do you really want cool and sexy if it comes with mental illness?
I really don't. And
right, because that's what you have to add to it. You can have cool and sexy. It is there. It is within reach. That's why you keep on holding on to it. But it comes at a really high cost. Do you really want it with the high cost? If you combined the cost to the fantasy of what cool and sexy is it really as cool and sexy as you imagined it to be?
No.
Right? Well, think of it this way. When someone actually thinks they are cool and sexy in their thinness going upstairs, holy shit. Those poor people, my God. They have stuff. They are doing a lot to be cool and sexy because it's that important to them. Oh, wouldn't you feel sorry for them?
Yeah. I mean, and this kind of goes with, I mean, this is like my identity is just being stripped away piece by piece, which I'm willingly doing. I'm willingly doing it, and I am just sort of sitting in this emptiness now, like it's cool and sexy, just putting on my jeans and my heels and having a little bit of a waist, and just felt free. That felt kind of free and fun, like I've actually, then I'll think, God.
Add the cost. Add the cost.
It's just...
Don't forget the cost of that.
Well, it was the cost. I still... Yeah, it was so free, but I still wouldn't even, like, go on dates because I still didn't think that was good enough.
Well, no, and what was the cost to get that moment?
And
it was... Think of what it took. I mean, the sacrifice, the obsessiveness with food, the constant shame, continuously having to micromanage, isolating yourself so that you can maintain this level of constriction with food.
Or just having it consume...
Constantly body checking.
And what did I eat is going to decide what my day is.
Yeah, that's the obsessiveness. That's like the 90% of every day focusing on that shit. That's the consequence. Like, you have to do that if you want that cool thinness, freedom idea that you never really got anyways. But yeah, you have to really see the reality of that. Like, in reality, the cool and sexy is you can't isolate it from what it takes and what it requires for you.
Well, not only all that, what it requires is that I stay an asshole too.
Correct, because you have to be defensive.
And fight with people and miserable and wonder what like.
Yeah, so when you give up this cool and sexiness, is it really that great? Are you really giving up something wonderful?
I'm not.
So that's important for you to see. Am I really giving up something that is just so fabulous? It's just amazing. It's just improved your life on so many levels.
Because the stranger walking by can see that I can, manage a set of stairs like a normal person. Oh, they're going to be so impressed. Like, now they see that I'm just a human being that's, needs to use the handrail. Oh, no. Like,
yeah, what's wrong with using a handrail?
Nothing is wrong with it.
That's the funny thing is you might have at some point really shamed others for having to use handrails, and this is your karma.
I did. It just shows their vulnerability. Like, it just shows vulnerability. Like,
there's the narcissism, right?
Yeah.
You hearing it? Like, holy shit. This is describing how narcissists think.
Like, I'm cleaning house. But whenever I look through my thought processing, it does just keep coming back to how glorious it is just to be dealing with these symptoms and getting rid of them, and how I behave and interact with people. Just the peace in that alone is so, and I would never have that if I was just, back in a manageable weight is. And then just living my life like that. I don't want to live my life in a trance of self-centeredness and assholeness.
Right. So even if you did lose the weight, would you even want to care or even acknowledge it?
No. I literally had, I admit, I looked at myself, my face in the mirror, and I was like, you were at 180 for fucking 18 years. That's like 50 pounds ago.
Yeah, and you still hated it.
Part of me was like, why couldn't you have just kept your shit together? Why did you just could have kept your shit together, we wouldn't be in this mess. And then I was
you weren't really happy at 180 and you didn't have your shit together. It's weird to
I was like, your shit together? You were like, no, then that wasn't your shit together. You were unhappy, you were upset all the time, you had all this anxiety, you were like a bitch to people, and you couldn't figure out what was wrong with you, and you lived in dread that you were a piece of shit. It's like, no, this isn't something that happened to you, now you have to deal with this. This is fucking awesome that you're this big, fat, miserable wretch, because now you are awake and alive.
Yeah, and you're more connected with reality, and you're more forgiving and more loving and more real and truthful. Just think about telling the truth about who you really are, how easy that is compared to what you used to do. Yeah. Just now you have nothing to hide. You have nothing to prove. You're just in total reality, just being real and just, so are you really, when you think about what you have to lose, are you really losing much? When you accept your weight as it is and the potential gain and loss of it.
Yeah.
Are you really, what do you get if you don't have to ever care about it, think about it, worry about it, attach to it? What do you get if you're indifferent and like it is none of your business? You don't have to ever doesn't, whether you gain or lose, that it is not something you have to ever think about, worry about, attach to, acknowledge. You have to acknowledge it.
That's just, it's a freedom that is just unheard of.
I did it. There's plenty of my clients that have done it. You just have to give up what you think you get from being thinner to get it. You have to not care anymore. You have to say, I'd rather not have cool and sexy. I don't want it.
Yeah.
Someone could come up to me and say, I have the perfect diet for you. You'll be thin and sexy and hot and everybody's going to love you. And you just go,
God, no.
Okay, so do you see what I mean? Where you're like, no, thanks. I'd rather have my foot pain.
Yeah,
I'd rather wobble. I'd rather be a paraplegic. I would rather, you get my point, where you reject it. You're not being rejected. You're rejecting that. You don't want it. You would rather be deaf or blind, or, I mean, think of all the physicalities that you'd rather be okay with than to go back into that. Just think about that. Because it's so catastrophic and toxic and self-centered and disconnecting, and it's so abusive in terms of how you relate to food and obsessive that it's just, you'd rather reject it. Like, no thanks. I can handle this body as it is, and I'd rather not get attention for something so superficial and limiting. There's no realness in that. That's like lying to people. I'd rather be truthful and just be real from the heart and let people and find out a natural relationship than a manipulated one.
Yeah.
You get my point? Like, what are you really losing by accepting your body as it is and looking at it as a, like, I can handle this. This is good.
Yeah.
Got a whole life of consciousness to work with now.
And then I guess it's just, so I guess it's sometimes you just sort of, once you've given up, let go of all this shit in your identity, you just kind of sit in this space for a minute and just try to figure, and then just wait to see what your life is going to be. Like, I'm just kind of,
yeah, it's like a blank white space of, that's what it is. And it is kind of scary. I recall when I hit that and it was like, but I don't know what I am. Well, do I want someone to tell me what I should be? Should I transfer it to a different thing where someone tells me how I should be? Is that what I would do with my next life? And
I feel like I'm just waiting. Like, I'm just sort of just sitting here, just kind of.
Well, can you rely on your own awareness to guide you?
Yeah.
Right. So this is something that I remember too is, well, I know I'm a good person. I don't mean any harm to anybody. Is that good enough to be used to create whatever life I want? Because if I'm willing to use that, then I can just live the way I want to live, whatever that is. I don't even know what that is, but when it comes down to it, I have to believe that I'm going to have a sense of what's good for me and what brings me joy. And I'm going to rely on that rather than listening to what other people think would bring me joy.
Or like rushing to fill it, like rushing to try not to feel sad, or rushing to, I'm kind of just, sometimes, I'll sort of drive around and be like, geez, I just feel so fucking empty inside. Why am I to feel so sad? Or
you're not,
kind of
so can you see that the reason though that feels that way, that would go away instantaneously?
That what?
That if you start living from the heart, in that vulnerability, that those feelings would instantaneously be gone. And they would never come back. Why is that? If you're living from the heart and you're doing what brings you joy, instead of doing what you're told to do to try to, earn joy, if you're just living in your joy, though that symptom that you've lived with would disappear.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
It feels sort of like a natural, as I'm letting go of one life and kind of stepping into a new life. that there would sort of be like an interim of crossing over or something.
Yeah, it feels kind of like you're a baby. You would feel like a brand new baby. I mean, imagine what a child feels like in the beginning of their life before they're brainwashed, right?
Yeah.
They're in the same position of white space. Infinite possibilities in a lifetime.
Yeah. Just
think of that. It's literally infinite. What you can do with a life. In a life.
Yeah, I'm in the process of figuring out what do I like to do. Like,
yeah. So what's the difference?
Who am I now that I've taken away? Like, these symptoms are going away, and all these inflammatory thoughts and all this chaos in my head. It's like, now what? and it is. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it is like a loneliness because there is, I'll be in a room full of women, and they're all, talking about their diet or, oh, we're getting this, we want to be healthy, so we're getting this exercise bike, and, oh, I can only eat the cheese off that pizza, and, oh, I did and they're all, oh, God, I just, and you just kind of just sit there, and I don't know, which isn't a big deal. It's fine. I don't want to be a part of some club, and I have empathy and all that, but it's just, it's like a little, just kind of a solo road to walk.
Yeah, is there something wrong with that?
No.
Wouldn't you rather?
It's just strange. It's just interesting.
I asked you that question. Wouldn't you rather be on a solo road than that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Absolutely.
Right? So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. I have to go. We're way over time.
Alrighty. Thank you so much.